All right, that's more like it. Hello, everybody. I made it on here after some Facebook craziness, but here I am. I wish you could see me also while I do these presentation, but it's okay. Maybe next week, or for sure next week, we'll be able to just have more of a face interaction with Stephanie being live on this training next week and myself as well. And so we'll make sure that you can see us, because I wish you could see how excited I feel about talking and sharing all of this deep wisdom of decorating with your feminine archetype and what that means. So welcome for this second part of this training, decorating for your feminine archetype. If you didn't yet watch the first part from last week, please make sure that you do so here on this Facebook group. We keep the trainings for you to be able to always have these resources and always be able to have access to them and always be able to integrate and apply what you learn on these weekly trainings. So I'm here every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I love doing this because it really helps me unpack a bit more and go deeper onto a lot of the sacred aspects of what sacred interiors are all about. So, if you're here, that's because you are interested in your home as a sacred space. If you're here, you know that a sacred space is way beyond what the eyes can see. And so it's important to me to be able to share this wisdom and these tips and these practical ways in which you can make sure that you're always feeling connected to yourself and connected to what it is that you want to bring to your home life, to your family, to your lover, your spouse, and, like I said, most importantly, yourself, because that's where it all begins. So a lot of what that inner work and that decorating from within is really about understanding that our external environments really determine and influence a lot of our thinking and a lot of our behavior, a lot of what our environment brings to us and what it sort of inspires us to do, or how it inspires us to be, is what the goal of decorating with sacredness and with intentionality is all about. So I'm super glad that you're here, especially if you're new to the group. Welcome. Make sure you share this group with your friends and family if you find these trainings helpful. I love interacting with you guys, and I love helping you out in your journey of decorating. So by all means, if you have any questions, if you have any specific pictures of your home, pictures of your sacred spaces, or anything like that, feel free to share them with me and let me know where you need, where you're stuck, or what isn't clicking for you, what you've been trying to do over and over that is not working, because from that interaction, a lot of other people also learn. And so I love being able to provide a sacred virtual space for you to be able to do that. So decorating with your feminine archetype, or for your feminine archetype. So last week, we covered basically what these archetypes are, and we also covered how many there are and what they're really about. So essentially, these archetypes, just as a recap, are a brief recap, are really just certain influences and certain behaviors and certain thinking patterns that we have in our life. And these archetypes can become tools for us to sort of understand ourselves deeper. They come from diverse cultures and myths and belief systems, and it's really about being able to bring light to what it is that we want to bring forth and what are hidden sort of aspects of us that unconsciously lead us in our life. And so that's what it is. And I said last week, it's time we get to be who we really are meant to be and not hide behind who we should be or who we think we should be. So we covered a lot last week. We covered the first 3 archetypes, and we covered some really important key points about them. We covered the lover, and we covered the maiden, and we also covered the mother. And so, did we also cover the huntress? I'm curious. Yes, we did. We covered 4 of them. We covered the lover, the maiden, the mother, and the huntress. And so today we are going to go into the other archetypes, which are the queen, the sage, and the mystic. And I shared a little bit about what all of the archetypes are about, and I will do the same thing today. And we'll also talk a little bit about how to embody these parts of you, how to express them with your home decor. You know, I talk a lot about who we are as women in terms of decorating and designing homes, because I believe that a lot of what our sacred spaces, our sacred homes are about is supporting us through our own personal life journey, supporting us through our own personal life transitions. And transitions or rites of passage or just personal life events and changes that we go through are oftentimes catalysts for us to know ourselves more, for us to learn about ourselves even more. And so, because my passion is very much guided towards self-development and spiritual growth and just being better human beings, that is my goal and my intention, to bring that sacredness to the home so that your home can be a space of support for you emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually, all of that. And so that's basically the sacredness of design in itself. And so working with these archetypes can be really powerful and very healing. And in the context of decorating, it also can be really fun, and it can be really enlightening to just see, you know, what are things that you really like, what are things that you really love, what are things that you don't, and how does it make everyone in your home feel? So that's a really important part of that. And so we're going to go right into, let me see, can I make this a little bit bigger? Let's see. Maybe not. Okay, I'm not going to mess with it because I don't want to get off of here if I start. Okay, so we cover the lover, we cover what her spaces might look like. We talked about what she decorates with, what sacred vignettes are about. We talked about the elements of each archetype and the mother archetype, her vignettes, the maiden and her spaces, the maiden and what she decorates with, the vignettes that we create to embody her, and the huntress, what her spaces might look like, what inspiration to bring her forth looks like, what to decorate with, what the vignettes are about, right? And the elements. And so today, as we go into these next archetypes, we're going to begin with the queen. And so the queen is really powerful. And I chose, of course, this celebrity picture of Beyonce because, you know, she's like a queen, right? And I'm not usually huge on pop culture in general, but obviously she is someone who stands out from the crowd. And her queen archetype and her queen sort of expression, or at least what the eyes see, right? Because obviously I don't know her, but based on just her magnific and her like magnetism, right? Her radiance and just her royal pose and her graceful way of being. That's essentially what the queen is all about. she is a diva. She's regal, she's glamorous, she's a leader. And the queen is very much about commanding her home, commanding her life, commanding her king. Part of what stands out a lot from the queen archetype is that she is a wife, right? Or, a partner, a lover also, but she's very committed to her relationship, and she's very committed to really nurturing that with grace and with radiance, right? And so she's, to me, a mix of the lover and the mother in one. She has, and even the huntress, she has a lot of those aspects in her. And she has this sort of what is the word, like the way she holds herself is just very high, very elegant, very glamorous. And so to bring through that archetype, decorating with white on white is a really tasteful way to bring her forth. Decorating with white on white is really a way to allow textures and create depth, not through just calling attention in a bold sort of way, but more about just very graceful and very amplified energy about her. So white on white interiors do that. They're just very amazing to walk into. Most of the times when people walk into a white on white space that's well designed, and it's not in a stark, cold, sort of sterile white room. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a really warm, inviting, cozy, spa-like feeling of a white on white interior. So decorating with white on white, or a lot of neutrals. It could be off-whites. It could be a lot of beige, a lot of cream colors. Grayish, which is that color that's a bit cooler than just a yellowish gray or a yellowish beige. It has a little bit more of a gray tone to it, and so forth. And that is something that when it's done correctly, it has a lot of depth with various textures or various patterns. There might be different feelings, different materials. A lot of textiles are involved in decorating properly with white on white. There's also bold focal points that the queen would decorate with. So as you can see on this picture here on the left, there's that, sort of embedded, whether it's a wallpaper or a mosaic kind of a feel, with that sharp point at the end, and it has some sort of a Moroccan vibe to it. It has a lot of character, and that's what this interior sort of portrays as a royal interior. You can also see that it's obviously the main wall of the room. It sort of grounds the space with a lot of attention. You walk in, you see that wall. It's you can't deny it. There's a lot sometimes there's also a lot of animal prints, or some animal prints. So, the cushion we see here, this pillow, there's a little bit of a energy of fire in there, right? That's a little bit of the aspect of the lover. And so that is what, one of those decorating elements are. And then other pieces to this archetype is vintage frames and mirrors, decorating with character, right? So she's glamorous, she's a diva, but there's a certain old-fashioned or, traditional classic feeling to her space. And it's not a lot, it's not completely traditional, but there are some elements to that. So vintage frames and mirrors often can do that. And then the other thing that really creates sort of diversity in her interests and merging of that lover, mother, huntress energy is a mix of modern and traditional items, right? So you can see here that there's some really traditional items in this picture, or elements like the shape of the chairs, even the black frame and this sort of woven back with leather seat. It's kind of retro. It has a bit of a story to it. Excuse me. But then it's also paired with this very modern black wall and some sort of like funkiness with the color of the flowers as well. And then the other element of decorating with the queen is she often has a bit of bohemian accents here and there. There's some sort of leadership that comes from that huntress quality, and there's a bit of an activism quality in there as well. She knows her values. She commands her home. She takes charge of what she allows to come in her home. And so some of the bohemian accents could come from supporting to the trade artists or supporting, local artists, handmade items. Maybe it's about telling her story of her traveling. It can be various different reasons why she's sharing that part of her, but bohemian accents often are a part of that. The other little tip I wanted to share as we continue to talk about vignettes in this second training is that vignettes are really about, bringing all of these elements, the elements of fire, the elements of earth, the elements of metal, all of the elements, but also all of these archetypes and little parts of these archetypes into our home. And so when we talk about vignettes, I really want to encourage you to see it as an opportunity to, maybe it doesn't fully call your attention for the entire room to just look at the vignette, but it can be a very subtle beginning to create that sacredness within your home. And this is important because, a lot of times people feel like the whole concept of interior design or the whole concept of sacred spaces in general, and even the pictures I'm showing, right? All of these images that are very well designed spaces and just gorgeous put together spaces. And they feel intimidated because they might not have the budget for that. They might not have the time for that, whatever the reason is. But the point with the sacredness of what I'm teaching you is that it doesn't matter if you live in a shoebox. It doesn't matter if you live in a cottage. It doesn't matter if you live in a mansion down the street from me. It doesn't matter if you live with your parents. It is about bringing some of that energy and creating basically a temple and an altar. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about altars at the end of the training, but it is basically an opportunity to honor yourself and accept yourself in whatever time in your life you are finding yourself to be. It is not about money, and it's not about style. It is not about any of those myths. And so I just wanted to make sure that you remember that. But in this second training, what I want to share with you about sacred vignettes is, again, you want to mix all elements: earth, fire, water, metal, wood, and all archetypes for each area of your life. And I wanted to point out some of these elements because they are what makes a vignette attractive, right? These universal interior design elements are what make those sort of hotels and lobbies and model homes that you see so much really attractive. It's because there's certain principles that are being used correctly to make that vignette. And so here I wanted to show you a few of those elements. So an anchor point, that's essentially in this case that mirror. It's just basically giving the space a backdrop. Something tall, so we have a vase with some nice greenery or some branches, a candle, a trinket box. Boxes are great to have little things, trinkets as it's being called for, but also they're great to have as like little pedestals. So it helps create height in the vignette, and so you can use it to lift some of your items up. Like this tiny little candle would get kind of lost in this table, but because it's a part of this mini vignette, which is the book, the trinket box, and the candle, that as a group creates a small little vignette, and then we added to the bigger one. And so that's something cool to just know, because all of you can walk out of this training ready to create your own vignette and just take little elements from here and shop within your own home and sit down for a moment and really try to connect with what part of yourself are you really wanting to be identified with, or what part of yourself is asking you to come through that you're not accepting, and what item within your home can that represent. And then you start creating this sacred sort of portal of connecting with yourself. And again, I'm going to go deeper into what altars are and how they work for us a tiny bit. But moving on, we have books. So creating a nice stack of books on a tray, that's another way to add a mini vignette and then merge it into a bigger one. Adding objects of interest, right? Things that you've collected from your trips, things that your children have given you. Accent lighting is also always a part of a successful vignette, or at least in the concept of like this console table or this sort of chest. And then we have art. Art is also another anchor point, and it can be really powerful to just evoke an intention, evoke an emotion, connect the color of your space, etc. So that's kind of a side point, but it's important because it creates a successful looking and aesthetically pleasing vignette. So the elements of the queen, right? The elements of the queen are sort of mixed. So we have metal, we have earth, and we have fire. And don't worry if you don't really yet know a whole lot about these elements. The idea here is for you to get a taste of what these spaces can evoke from you and what you can create with just a few items. And of course, if you want to go deeper, you're always welcome to contact me, join my group, join my academy, join any of the other treatments that we offer, or trainings that we offer, and ask about our services, because we can certainly be a big part of helping you create that on a bigger scale. And so these vignettes for the queen have a lot of that metal element, which is all about productivity. There's fire, which is about her passion. Some of those elements can be wallpaper. They can help you create that sort of bold focal point. The other aspect of the queen style is that it doesn't have, like, vignettes don't have as many items. They have less items, but they're larger. They make more of a statement, right? So you can see here that the table doesn't have a bunch of little knickknacks and a bunch of little goodies, but it has some large pieces that, you know, create together this full-on vignette. And so we have a lamp, we have the vase, we have the books, and we have this anchor point, which is the plants. And then, of course, the gorgeous queen-like mirror with this fiery energy of the huntress as well is there as an anchor, right? It's sort of almost like a protection symbolism in there with the dragons. And, you know, also very representative of Saint Michael, which I won't get into too much, but today is in the Waldorf tradition, Michaelmas, and this is essentially a day and a time that shows us our own darkness and our own dragons. And basically, in plain English, what that means is we need to deal with things that are part of our shortcomings. We need to hold ourselves accountable. We need to dig deeper and really heal parts and aspects of us that are not serving us. And so that's kind of a side note, but that's really what the Queen vignette is all about. We're moving on to the Sage archetype. And of course I chose opera, and she is really about wisdom, right? The Sage archetype is about wisdom, power, knowledge. She's very much about integrity and truthfulness, even if it's a little bit hard to accept or uncomfortable. But she is straight to the point, right? And she is still loving and kind, but she has this sense of discernment where she becomes a really good advisor. She's a teacher. She is a good friend. She has a lot of the energy of the mother. She is very nurturing, but also very firm. She has this loving sort of authority to her. extremely wise. And she has a lot of aspects of all archetypes integrated to her, right? She understands them. She's been there. She's been a maiden before. She's been a lover. She's been a mother. She's been a huntress, right? She's in that more sort of, what's the word? More of that harvesting her fruits type of thing, right? Oftentimes this is a biological thing. Oftentimes, she is in an age where she's getting older. She may have retired. Maybe she does not get her period anymore. And it's not about age necessarily all the time, but normally this is where part of that development of that archetype would show up around that age group or so. And so part of what she would decorate with would be neutrals and a lot of natural materials, linen, cotton, wool, that kind of a thing, spaces that feel very, very welcoming and very loving. There's an elegance to her, right? There's a grace, there's the way she not just carries herself, but the devotion with which she takes care of her home. There's some carved wood elements in the spaces, sometimes in their architecture of the home. So like this beautiful carved wooden doors and doorknobs, and trays, high quality pieces like a good real wood chair. There's a lot of that feeling. And of course you can evoke that with simple things, but for the sake of giving you the big sort of macro picture of this, that's what this is about. And then we have features like marble, mosaics. Those are sort of the materials that are a big part of the sage personality. There's exotic flowers, like very unique, gorgeous flowers, whether they're faux or real. There's pillows that are usually, again, very luxurious. They're very comfortable, very delicious to like lay on, that kind of a thing. And then we have, like in other archetypes, a lot of layers of textiles and lighting to create that sort of ambiance that's welcoming, etc. So that's an aspect of her and some of the elements that she decorates with. By the way, whether you're live or watching the replay, please let us know that you are here. Say hello. Let us know that you're watching this. If you're new to the group, feel free to ask any questions. This is a really awesome space for us to really interact, and I love helping you with your questions. So don't be shy. Make sure you ask. Make sure you say hello. So the vignette for the sage. I love this vignette. It reminds me a lot about my grandmother. My grandmother is someone that I grew up with. Both of my grandmothers, but in this case, I'm talking about my paternal grandmother because she's like a queen and the sage of decorating. She's got the most impeccable taste, and anyone in my family will tell you so. In fact, I might actually post a picture of her soon because I really want you to see like that embodiment of the sage. And so the elements of the sage are about wood, earth, and water. Wood being that aspect of her that is still always growing and always learning and always discerning from her own experience. She knows that learning is a strength and not a weakness. The earth is about feeling grounded, right? She takes in all of the positive aspects of something and the negative aspects of something, and she comes to a space of neutrality. She's wise. She discerns through things, but she's also really grounded. And then water is the part of her that accepts all emotions. She accepts that there's change all the time, that there's, challenges that come up, there's difficulties that come up, there's emotion, there's grief, there's all these sort of flowy elements to life, and she's an acceptance of that. She decorates with bamboo, wood. These are elements that help us integrate that wood aspect. Furniture that's, wood furniture and accents, like this table, for example. Glossy lamps are a really cool piece for adding that sort of elegance. And like the queen, there's that mix of old and new. So you can see that this lamp feels very new. It feels very clean. And then we have the bucket where the flowers are, which are a bit more sort of shabby and a bit more vintage. There's a lot of thrift stores that you can visit to make purchases for these kind of items too. And those are kind of what add that flavor of history to the spaces. And that's very much an element of the sage. And there's color repetition as well. So you'll often see, very well decorated spaces where the pattern of the pillows is slightly repeated on the shade of the table lamp, or maybe on the valance on the window treatments, that kind of a thing. There's repetition of color throughout the space without being too matchy-matchy. There's a tasteful way to repeat that color. So worn vintage thrifts or purchases, I mentioned that before. And then we have our mystic. And the mystic archetype is one that I feel I often relate to a lot, and I feel like it's one that embodies a lot of the archetypes. She has an elevated sense of understanding all of the aspects of the other archetypes. There's a lot of inner world exploration and self-reflection that happens for the mystic. And so her personality and her traits are that she's mysterious and she's often reserved, even though she has this very rich inner world. There's a very bold and vibrant and alive inner world to her, but she doesn't necessarily have to be super extroverted. She values her energy and she values her time for herself. She also loves nature and she loves self-reflection. She loves all archetypes. She can recognize herself in a lot of those archetypes. And so that's basically what the mystic is about. And so what she decorates with are often quirky items, casually placed items, right? And I say casually with a smile because you want to make it look casual, but it's not always casual. There's an intention to where you're putting things, but it's almost like the casual feeling comes from it just merging with everything else that she owns. There's like a really clear reflection of what she likes, and so anything from anywhere in the room sort of matches everything from the rest of the house, that kind of a thing. Accessories like crystals. I've talked a lot about crystals before. Amethyst, quartz, smoky quartz, shungite, lapis, all kinds of crystal and stones are also part of her decor. She loves branches, she loves driftwood, hand-carved wood, like Moroccan style wood, or Indian, Bali sort of feeling to that, for her style. And then she also loves connecting with deities and spiritual being and spiritual images. And this does not have any particular religion. It doesn't even have to be religious at all. It could be, connecting with animal spirits and plants. It could be about connecting with religious beings, like I mentioned, or just simply lineages and traditions, mystics, different mythology. She values history. She values the chain of teachers. She values the sages and the wise people that have walked this path before her. She has a willingness to discover that. So some of those decorating items also can be plants. She loves nature, right? So bringing nature in. Greenery, like I said, branches, flowers, obviously also bringing some of that, shells, what else? Shells, sand, rocks, stones, water, all kinds of nature-related items. And she also loves to mix patterns and colors. She's not afraid of mixing things. She's not controlling and neurotic, and not everything has to match. So she's okay being a bit eclectic. She's okay being a little bit of a bohemian. Her elements are very much about wood, earth, and water. So again, growing, always learning. Earth is grounding and water is allowing. And this is part of the sage trait as well, which I didn't actually change here. But this is archetypes. These are elements of the mystic archetype as well. And then she loves decorating with altars. And so her vignettes, and this is where I was going to share a little bit about altars. Her vignettes are very much about sacred temples. And so, you know, I don't know what everyone's sort of tradition and lineage is here, and whether you are yogis or not, whether you practice any spirituality at all, if you have any of that embedded in you, I would love to know, actually. I would love to find out where you're at in that part of your life, in your spiritual life, because that's key to my work. And I love working with people who are just discovering that for themselves. I often, as a Kundalini yoga teacher, work a lot with beginners, people who've never done yoga before, people who, you know, never thought that that was for them, but suddenly they have a spark of curiosity. And so I would love to know, if you're watching this, please let me know. I'm very, very curious. And so what I was saying about these visually sort of appealing arrangements, which can also be called vignettes in the design world, but I'm calling them altars because that's the sacred aspect of them, right? And so these spaces are about activating your intention. So in a lot of religions you'll see, or traditions you'll see, like, you know, Buddhist temples, they have candles, they have stones, they have different items that they pray to. Basically, they pray to. And in the lineage of Kundalini Yoga, it is said that your whole life is essentially a prayer. Everything that you are doing and thinking and feeling and saying is a prayer in one way or another. But in this case, we're going to be extremely intentional about it. So when we create these vignettes with these energies of these archetypes, they're about activating your intention, and they create sort of a bio-memory because they're meant to remind you of what you're working for. They're meant to remind you that, you know, you are wanting to embody more of whatever. If your intention is to be a better mother and connect with your conscious parenting aspect of you, then that's what your altar should remind you. And so maybe there's a picture of you with your children in your altar. Maybe there's an image of a mother breastfeeding her baby. If your intention is to attract a lover, maybe there's a picture of, you know, someone you're attracted to, or maybe there's just a picture of a couple in love. If you're wanting to work through your marriage, if you're feeling challenged by that, maybe there's a picture of you and your spouse there. You know, there's activation of your intention merely with the fact that you're creating physical space for it. And that's essentially, this is a little bit deep, and I'm studying this in some of my Kundalini Yoga training, but it's essentially you're creating an altered state of being. So through this physical space that you're decorating, you're merely touching the surface. Like, we know that. I'm never going to claim that decorating changes your consciousness necessarily, but it is an amazing first step because we are in this world, right? And so to create these altars is a way to alter your own consciousness, your own belief system. So if you felt, you know, shy and not willing to express your sexuality, maybe you create an altar with candles and some yummy oils, and you discover that part of yourself. Whatever the case might be, they are meant to be rituals. They are deeply personal. So personal, meaningful items should be a part of them. You know, things you find that inspire you. A lot of, a lot of my altars, I have several altars. A lot of them have pictures of my dad who passed away many, many years ago, or of many other people that I've lost and that have transitioned. And I love having altars of them in my space. And I go through phases where I don't have them at all. And so it depends what you're wanting to create. Having inspirational quotes, and then key parts of these altars are engaging your senses, engaging your sense of smell, of touch, of sight, using symbolism, and again, using nature like the ocean and the mountains. So this is part of what I'm studying, and I'm just going to share it briefly with you because it is deep. It is rooted in the Yogi Bhajan Kundalini Yoga tradition. And he said, be the altar, not the alternative. When you identify yourself as such and you worship it, right? You worship that altar and that part of yourself, it'll give you personality, purpose, and prosperity. Any alternative to this is to lose your grace and your highest potential to life. This is the sacred secret of prosperity. And again, this is super, super deep, but essentially this is about what I covered before. If you create this altar for you, you start developing and attracting and manifesting more of that trait, of that archetype you want to bring forth. You start creating a new sense of purpose in how you're doing things, a new sense of intentionality in how you talk to your family, how you talk to your children. There's a sense of connection that happens that's very different when you create an altar at the table, like a centerpiece at your dining table, and you lit a candle or light a candle to sit with your family versus, you feed them a slice of pizza on a paper plate. And there's days for both of those things, right? We're not saying, have that dinner every single day, because obviously we're in the modern world and it's not always possible, but it is a step to start paying attention to that. How are you doing these mundane things? What energy are you bringing forth to cooking, to cleaning, to doing laundry, to any of those things? It's very, very important to understand that worshiping that part of yourself is a constant reminder. And so what he would say, the master of Kundalini Yoga, is make sure you bow your head to your altar every day so that you bow to the possibility of you, the highest possibility of you. So going deep there, but it's really a big part of my life and of my desire to share and not hide behind the shallowness of what design can be. So create a physical altar, right? When you build this altar correctly, and again, altar is basically the vignettes I just helped unpack and understand and shared with you how to create. When you build those altars correctly with devotion, and intention, again, it alters your consciousness, and you kind of go through a portal where you are seeing this part of you that's the heightened, higher version of you. And your whole home is an altar in one way or another. It's an opportunity to have that higher vision of yourself. So imagine the difference of bowing your head to this beautiful, intentionally made altar, not necessarily expensive, not necessarily luxurious, simply meaningful, devoted, intentional space, versus bowing your head at, the clutter you've been procrastinating to clean up for years. It's a very different version, right? And so creating a sacred space physically is a fantastic way to start. And I encourage you to get started with that altar. Like I said, after this training today, my goal is for you to be able to shop around your house and find little significant parts of you that you want to honor, that you want to worship, and make that little vignette by your nightstand, by your coffee table, on your kitchen counter, anywhere. It can be tiny. It does not have to be your whole house. It can just be a tiny little space, and use some of the elements I shared here with you. Use the stones, use nature items, go outside and bring a branch of greenery, and whatever it is, your altar can be made right now. So this is an altar that we created for my sister's house, for example, and this is about her parenting, and she is currently doing her training to become a certified conscious parenting coach, and all of her inner work because of her own rites of passage of becoming a mother, a single mother, and going through the experience of giving birth, and all of this that life brought to her and that she brought to life has taken her to this space of honoring her as a mother and to reparent herself, which is another full training. But this is the altar we created. It's super simple. We got a lot of things from here on Amazon. The lamp we got from Amazon. This dream catcher, we actually purchased it from some artists in Colombia when we traveled a few years back. This picture is from a local artist who does incredible watercolor pieces and oil pieces. And the frame is a vintage piece that we found, and then the little glass vase and a fresh rose. So super simple, but look how beautiful. And that's what she wakes up to every single morning. And so I also want to remind you that in this group, there are several sacred altar creating and sacred altar design trainings where you can go even a little deeper onto what specifics to bring into your altar. So make sure you check them out. And again, the key to decorating as a channel of expression is to embody all these different aspects of these archetypes, all 7 that we just covered: the queen, the sage, the huntress, the maiden, the mystic, and which one am I missing? The lover and the mother. All of these archetypes are what we are wanting to just bring light into. And so I hope that this was helpful for you. I hope that you take the time to just process and take the time to apply what you learn. And then super exciting, next week, we're going to have Stephanie Pierre on the group. She's going to share a lot about what these archetypes, a lot more about what these archetypes are about. And she's also going to share some about the dark sides of these archetypes and these sort of capacities to embody, and what these sort of subconscious patterns of these archetypes being in the back of our head, bring through and bring to your life. And we'll go into, what your current space might look like that is showing you that archetype needs to come through, or that archetype needs to be healed or to be expressed, or whatever it is. So I'm really excited about her being here because she is an amazing, wise, mystic goddess. And so super excited about tuning into that darkness, the effects of clutter in your home also. And then we'll go a little bit deeper into the benefits of sacred spaces in general, and how you can work with me and my team, and how you can take your discovery of who you are deeper also. And so that's going to be next week. We'll be here live October 6th, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Stephanie Pierre will join us live. She's a doctor in Oriental medicine, astrologer, artist, mother goddess, and more. She's awesome. And I'm very excited about her bringing her gifts and her fire into the group. And I hope that you love it as much as I do. Thank you for being here. Let me know if you have questions. And please, please, please stay tuned for next week. And make sure you invite your friends and family, because it's going to be amazing. Okay? Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful night.